And I think we're going to get a phone call in here from House Majority Leader Dan Hawkins as some big news is breaking. I love it. I love it. See, this is why live radio is awesome and why we can, do the thing unlike anybody else, because we can talk about the issues as they happen. So here's the official news. As you know, there's been an issue going on in the state with Governor Laura Kelly that has tried to essentially violate state law by wanting to extend food stamps by the time they're not allowed to and go extended further and have them longer and have more and whatever. And she's trying to break the 2015 HOPE Act that has been in legislation since 2015. Now, she has been in opposition to that law since it was actually happening. But the breaking news that was hand-delivered to Governor Laura Kelly in her hands, in her office today, was a letter from Attorney General Derek Schmidt, and we're going to get House Majority Leader Dan Hawkins on the line here in just a second to fill us in here. But the hand-delivered letter from Attorney General Derek Schmidt to Governor Laura Kelly pretty much says, ain't allowed to do those extensions. That violates state law. You're not in the legislature anymore. You cannot sign an executive order to do this. And if you do not cease and desist this, we will send you to court. Here's what it has to say. The pertinent facts are these. In 2015, the legislature adopted and the governor signed into law HB 2258, which enacts the HOPE Act for Kansas. The legislation contains the following provision. And this is the quote from the legislation. Quote, the Secretary for Children and Families is prohibited, and that's emboldened, from requesting or implementing a waiver or program from the U.S. Department of Agriculture for the time-limited assistance provisions for able-bodied adults age 18 through 49 without dependents in a household under the food assistance program. The time on food assistance for able-bodied adults age 18 to 49 without dependents in the household, in bold, shall be limited to 3 months in a 36-month period if such adults are not meeting requirements for imposing by the U.S. U.S. Department of Agriculture that they must work for at least 20 hours a week or participate in a federally approved work program or its equivalent. So right there, you're not allowed to extend it. It is prohibited to ask for waivers, and it shall be limited to 3 months in a 36-month period. Now, again, we've talked about the economy and how well it's doing and why we want to expand social programs like this when actually people are not on them as much and when the economy is doing well. And the fact that it specifically mentions that in the legislation and the governor's side decided to do an executive order to extend them and to break that without legislative approval is violating the law. And in the continued letter here from Attorney General Derek Schmidt, it says that your longstanding opposition to the public policy enacted through this provision is well known. As a member of the Kansas Senate, you led an effort during the floor debate to strike this provision from the bill. And he shows the reference on there. At this time, it is announced policy. DCF failed even to acknowledge the state law statutory prohibition, much less explain how much policy complies with it. But the specific Kansas policy in the 2015 HOPE Act enacted by legislature and signed into law by the governor is clear. Able-bodied adults without children and other dependents who are capable of working should do so and not be provided extended publicly funded food assistance if they are not working. The DCF legal arguments to the extent are persuasive at all. Most amount to the declaration that DCF lawyers think that they have discovered a legal loophole that allows the agency to evade the clear public policy reflected into state law. Of course, Governor, you are free to propose changes to state law and work to persuade the legislature to replace the statutory prohibition with public policy you prefer. So, too is Secretary of Children and Families. But unless and until changed, we must give effect to the law that is currently on the books. For all these reasons, I respectfully request that you review policy adopted by your agency and have it withdrawn as it conflicts with either the letter of the state law in spirit or both. Please be advised that in this event, I do not receive confirmation that the policy is withdrawn by Friday, July 12th. I am prepared to seek a judicial determination whether the policy violates state law. Meaning, if you don't comply within 2 days, we're sending you to court, and we're going to take you to court, baby. And that's the way it's done. Boom! Mic drop, lay down the hammer. This is the breaking news going on in Kansas. I absolutely love it. Hat tip to Derek Schmidt, Attorney General, for hand-delivering that one. And one of the guys who started the claim, if you remember, the media went nuts when this guy actually tried to call out Governor Laura Kelly because of this, and then they kind of backhandedly agreed with him that this shouldn't be done, as he's been fighting this from the very get-go. House Majority Leader Dan Hawkins, I think, is on the line with us here. Dan, how are you, my friend?
I am very good, and I'm fantastic today, Andy. That was some great news. when I actually saw it come across one of those blog publications that a letter had been delivered to the governor, and I was like, wow, what a great day, because we've been fighting this for quite a while. Actually, if you remember, I started working on this clear back in May when they put out their memo, and we noticed that it did violate the law. We studied it, and I called out the governor, asked her to cease and desist at that time, and of course they just kind of thumbed their nose at me and said, no, we believe we're in good standing on this issue, so we're going to continue. Well, that policy goes into effect that they're making July 1, so it just started, and so time was of the essence. I've been working with the AG ever since. She just basically, the governor just said, we're going to continue, and to his credit, he has to do a lot of due diligence. He has to study the issue. I thought since it had taken a while that maybe we were going to have a good outcome, and of course today proved that the AG agrees with me and has basically put the governor on notice, either cease and desist or we're going to go to judicial review and see what the judges say. So
yeah, this is a circle.
That was pretty good news.
I mean, the fact that he quoted it right there in there, and he made it bold. It is prohibited from requesting a waiver or program from the Department of Agriculture, and it shall be limited to 3 months and 3 months in a 36-month period. I mean, that's very clear. I don't know how the governor can say, well, those are just guidelines and we're going to extend it anyways. I mean, when a law like this is passed by the legislature, signed by the governor, you can't just years later sign an executive order and be like, yeah, I'm going to do what I want to. I mean, that to me, that is a blatant, bold violation of the law, is it not?
Well, it is, but if you go back to her State of the State address back in January, it was either during the State of the State or right after the State of the State, she was quoted in the press as saying that she would do everything she could to skirt any work requirements. She hates work requirements, period. So actually during our research that we did leading up to this point, actually before I went to the AG and actually presented my case to the AG, we had done a lot of research, and we found where she actually, on the floor of the Senate, had brought an amendment to strike that specific language because she knew what it was going to do. She knew it would be impossible, and that's what it was meant for.
Sure.
We believe as Republicans that in a hand up, not a handout, that we want people to better themselves. That we don't want people. I can't imagine anybody wanting to live off of what the government gives us, and gives people in that situation. It's very minimal. It's not even a survival.
Sure.
It's basically just a small amount. So we want people to get back to work. We want them to be self-supportive. We want them to have value in themselves. So that's the purpose of the HOPE Act. The HOPE Act was named the HOPE Act because we want people to have hope in their future. And so we made it such that future governors or future administrations could not violate that principle of helping people get back to work and being successful in their lives, because that's the purpose of that. She doesn't like that. She wants to fight it to the bitter end. So we're willing to do that. We're willing to go and keep pressing the issue, and I think that we're standing in pretty good ground right now.
No, you really are. You're absolutely right. I mean, you guys had the foresight, which doesn't happen very often in government, but you had the foresight back then to say, you know what, yeah, there may be other governmental entities that may try and repeal this or change it, and we're going to make it very clear that this is what's going to happen. And the fact that she has a long-standing vendetta against this and tried to fight it back when the legislation was being done, I mean, it's kind of a personal thing for her. And the fact, here's the question. If this go, I don't know. First off, do you think she's going to abide by this, or do you think she's going to try and take it to court to fight?
That'll be interesting, and we can't really predict that. I think that she is probably weighing her options right now, and her options are starting to diminish. I guarantee you, the Attorney General would not take the case if he didn't think that there was a very legitimate case here that can be defended in court. So I think that has to send a message, and that was the purpose, I'm sure. And the AG didn't call me and tell me what he was going to do, so I don't have any inside knowledge. But I believe, knowing him, that he's very careful. He's very detail-oriented. He looks at the whole case. He decided it had merit, and he's basically given her a chance this week to cease and desist, to stop what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if she chooses not, then he has laid out his position that he will go before the court and seek judicial review of this and let the courts decide, the merit of the case. And I think the merit of the case will be borne out really quick. So it'll be interesting. I'm waiting for Friday. I can't wait to see what happens for Friday.
I can't wait either. And you know what's really exciting about this case is that this is a perfect example of what a checks and balance system of governance actually does. I mean, we have a piece of legislation that had all three branches of government in there when it was passed constitutionally by the courts. It was passed by the legislature, signed by the governor, and now we have a testing of that theory by a governor wanting to use an executive order to override that and to abuse it. We have another branch that's saying, wait a second, you're not allowed to do that, and then we're going to check the constitutionality. I mean, from a dork like me who likes to do the checks and balance system here, this is a beautiful process to show how it's all going to play out.
It is. It truly is. And this will kind of set the stage. I think this will set the stage for the future.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the governor and you can get by with something, you're going to keep getting by with it until somebody says you can't any longer.
Sure.
So I really look at this as this is one of those things that we have to go through, kind of set those boundaries so she understands that she just can't use her executive power to do anything she wants, and specifically, she can't use it to sidestep current statute. That's just a no-no. So,
sure.
If you don't like it, go about changing it. But
exactly.
But you can't just use your executive power to skirt it.
No, she should be coming to you guys and saying, "Hey, legislature, it's time to It's time to update this. It's been too long. The economy's still struggling in Kansas. Whatever argument we want to use, it's still tough here. We haven't been able to lower taxes yet. We need to help some people out a little bit more. Can we try to adjust this and amend it and make it a little bit longer if we need to do so for certain groups? And that would be the appropriate way to do this." Here's the other question, the media's response to this. I mean, they gave you kind of a backhanded support back a few weeks ago saying, well, he's right because the governor shouldn't use that kind of power, even though we don't like the legislation because it's evil and it harms people because how dare they actually have to try and work or look for work for 20 hours a week. That's, horrible. They shouldn't have to be working that much sort of thing. What do you think the response is going to be from the media on this? Do you think that they're going to be angry at the AG, or are they going to, again, try and do a backhanded endorsement to try and say, wait, Governor, maybe you shouldn't have a loss like this on your record. Back off on this one.
No, I think you're exactly correct in that assumption. The organization that did it was the Kansas City Star. It was actually the editorial board. Now, the editorial board is not exactly favorable to our side. They're actually they support the governor on pretty much everything. In this case, they understood. They understood exactly. They said, we don't like the law. We hate the HOPE Act. We don't agree with the HOPE Act at all.
Sure.
So we do agree that it's statute, and we agree. Madam Governor, you shouldn't be violating it. If you don't like it, go change the law, but don't violate the statute. You're violating the statute. So they supported my position, and I think they'll continue to. I thought it was interesting that the Kansas City Star would be the one that did it, not Wichita, which the Wichita Eagle hasn't weighed in at all.
Sure.
Well, that's okay. They're going to do what they're going to do, but I do think that the media, and especially the media that covers that, the state. I think they understand exactly what's going on.
Sure.
They don't necessarily support the HOPE Act, but they do support the fact that we do have a statute, we have a law.
Right.
If you don't agree with it, change it, but otherwise abide by it. She's not above the law, neither am I. We have to abide by the statute.
Got to do the thing. I love it. This is great news. It's going to be fun to watch, and as you mentioned, see what happens by Friday. Will the governor back off on this, or will she continue to pursue it? House Majority Leader Dan Hawkins, I appreciate you sending me this as it broke, and I appreciate you coming on short notice to talk about this. This is going to be really fun to watch over the next few days. We may get you back on early next week to kind of follow up on this.
Sure. Well, I had to. When I came across my phone, I go, "Wow, this is pretty cool." And so, luckily, technology allows us to just send that out there. So
hey, there it is. The beauty of live radio, my friend. We get to get this stuff out for everybody as soon as it comes out. So that's awesome. Dan Hawkins, House Majority Leader. We appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk again real soon.
Take care, Andy.
All right, you too. I appreciate it. This is awesome. I love it. Again, if you missed it, the Attorney General hand-delivering that letter to Governor Laura Kelly saying cease and desist on your extension of the food stamp program, extension that you want to do by Friday, or we go to court, baby. That's what it's all about. We'll take a break, wrap up hour number 1 here on The Voice of Reason. 9 minutes at the top of the hour. Stay here.